Picture this: a 67-year-old German pensioner steps off a plane in Banjul, the Gambia, clutching a suitcase full of gifts and 2,000 in cash. She's not here for the beaches or the wildlife. She's here to meet Usman, her 28-year-old boyfriend. She's been sending money to for 3 years. Welcome to one of Africa's most controversial tourism phenomena, a story that reveals uncomfortable truths about poverty, colonialism, and human desperation. You think you know about sex tourism? Think again. What's happening in the Gambia isn't just about exploitation. It's about survival, economics, and a twisted form of cultural exchange that challenges everything we think we understand about modern Africa and Europe's relationship with it. The Gambia is the smallest country on mainland Africa. Just 4,361 square miles, roughly the size of Connecticut. It's a sliver of land carved along the Gambia River, completely surrounded by Senegal except for its 50-mile Atlantic coastline. With a population of 2.4 million people, it's one of the world's least developed countries, ranking 174th out of 189 nations on the UN Human Development Index. Here's the shocking reality: the average annual income in the Gambia is just $750. That's about what many Europeans spend on a single weekend getaway. Youth unemployment hovers around 38%, and in rural areas, over 70% of people live below the international poverty line of $1.90 per day. But step into any beach resort in Colali or Senegambia, and you'll witness something extraordinary. European women, predominantly from Germany, Britain, and Scandinavian countries, accounting for nearly 60% of all tourists, flock here year after year. The official statistics from the Gambia Tourism Board show that female tourists outnumber male tourists by a ratio of 31, unusual for any destination worldwide. What brings them here isn't just the year-round sunshine or the beautiful beaches. It's something far more complex and controversial. To understand this phenomenon, we need to go back to the Gambia's colonial history. British colonial rule from 1821 to 1965 left deep scars. The British established the Gambia primarily as a trading post for groundnuts, peanuts, creating an economy entirely dependent on a single export crop. When independence came in 1965, the Gambia inherited virtually no industrial infrastructure, limited educational systems, and an economy designed to serve colonial interests, not local development. The situation worsened under Yahya Jammeh's brutal 22-year dictatorship from 1994 to 2016. Jammeh's regime was marked by human rights abuses, economic mismanagement, and international isolation. Tourism became one of the few legitimate sources of foreign currency, bringing in approximately $60 million annually, nearly 20% of the country's GDP. Here's where the story takes a darker turn. During the 1990s and 2000s, as European charter flights began bringing budget tourists to the Gambia's beaches, local young men discovered that forming relationships with female tourists could provide financial opportunities their own economy couldn't offer. What started as genuine cultural exchange gradually evolved into something more transactional. Dr. Adama Jammeh, a sociologist at the University of the Gambia, conducted groundbreaking research in 2018 that revealed the scope of this phenomenon. Her study found that approximately 30% of young Gambian men aged 18 to 35 in coastal tourist areas had been involved in relationships with European women at some point. These aren't isolated incidents. This has become a significant part of the informal economy. The women? They're not who you might expect. Contrary to stereotypes, research by German anthropologist Drive Heike Drottbohm found that the majority are educated, middle-class professionals, teachers, nurses, civil servants, and retirees. The average age is 55, with many being divorced or widowed. They're seeking companionship, adventure, and yes, romance, in a place where their pension money makes them feel wealthy and desired. How does this system actually work? The relationships typically begin on the beach or in hotel bars. Young Gambian men, known locally as bumpsters, approach female tourists offering to be tour guides, friends, or companions. These men often speak multiple European languages, a necessity for survival in this economy. What follows is a carefully choreographed courtship. The men are charming, attentive, and skilled at making their targets feel special and beautiful. Within days or weeks, romantic relationships develop. The women, many lonely after divorces or bereavements, find themselves swept up in passionate affairs with men half their age in a tropical paradise. But here's the uncomfortable truth: these relationships are transactional from the start. Though both parties often convince themselves otherwise. The European women provide money for emergencies, a sick mother, school fees for siblings, or business startup costs. In return, they receive attention, companionship, and sexual intimacy that makes them feel young and desirable again. The amounts involved are staggering. According to data from Western Union and other money transfer services, Europeans send an estimated 15 to 20 million annually to the Gambia through informal channels. Individual women often send 200 to 500 monthly, amounts that can support entire extended families in the Gambia. Some relationships evolve into marriage and visa sponsorship. The German embassy in Dakar processes hundreds of family reunification applications annually from Gambian men married to German women. British, Danish, and Dutch embassies report similar patterns. The Gambian government finds itself in an impossible position. Tourism provides crucial foreign currency, but the country's reputation as a destination for romance tourism undermines efforts to attract families and traditional tourists. Officials publicly discourage these relationships, while privately acknowledging their economic importance. Let me tell you about Fatou's story, though that's not her real name. She's a 34-year-old single mother from a village outside Brikama. For 7 years, she received monthly payments from Ingrid, a retired Swedish teacher who believed she was supporting her Gambian son, Fatou's brother Lamin, through university. In reality, Lamin never attended university. The elaborate fiction included fake enrollment documents, staged phone calls with supposed professors, and even a graduation ceremony that Ingrid attended via video call. The 300 monthly payments supported Fatou's 3 children, her elderly parents, and helped her start a small market business. When Ingrid discovered the deception during an unannounced visit in 2019, the confrontation was devastating for both women. Ingrid felt betrayed and used. Fatou felt guilty but argued that her family's survival depended on the income. She spent more on her dog's medical care in 1 month than my children see in a year, Fatou told a local NGO worker. Was it wrong to let her help us? Then there's the story of Klaus and Aminata. Klaus, a 58-year-old German carpenter, divorced and lonely, first visited the Gambia in 2015. He met Aminata, 31, who worked in a beach bar. Their relationship lasted 4 years, during which Klaus sent over 40,000. He paid for her house, her children's education, and her small restaurant business. When Klaus retired and moved to the Gambia permanently in 2019, he discovered that Aminata had been married to a local man the entire time. The house was in her husband's name, the restaurant was managed by her family, and she had another European boyfriend, sending money from Belgium. These stories illustrate the complex web of deception, genuine affection, economic desperation, and cultural misunderstanding that characterizes these relationships. This phenomenon reflects broader global inequalities that colonialism helped create, and that globalization has intensified. The average German pension is 1,400 monthly, nearly double the annual average income in the Gambia. This economic disparity creates power imbalances that make genuine equality in relationships nearly impossible. Dr. Susan Froelich, a Canadian anthropologist who has studied similar phenomena in Costa Rica and the Caribbean, argues that this represents a new form of economic colonialism. European women, she contends, use their financial advantage to access young, attractive partners in ways that would be impossible in their home countries, while local men commodify their sexuality and emotional labor for economic survival. The impact on Gambian society is profound. Traditional family structures are disrupted when young men's primary economic relationships are with foreign women, rather than local employment or business opportunities. Many young Gambian women report feeling unable to compete with the financial resources European women can offer. leading to delays in marriage and family formation. There's also a generational divide. Older Gambians often view these relationships as shameful, while younger people increasingly see them as pragmatic responses to economic reality. My grandfather worked for the British for 40 years and died poor, one young man told researchers. These women are also from Europe. Why shouldn't we benefit from their money? The psychological costs are significant too. Many young Gambian men report feeling trapped in performances of affection they cannot sustain while struggling with the shame of being financially dependent on women. Depression and anxiety rates are high among this population, though mental health services are virtually non-existent. The current Gambian government, led by President Adama Barrow since 2016, faces a delicate balancing act. Tourism accounts for nearly 20% of GDP and provides employment for hundreds of thousands of Gambians. Cracking down too hard on romance tourism could devastate the economy. Instead, officials promote authentic cultural tourism, while quietly discouraging the more exploitative aspects of the current system. The Tourism Board launched a Real Gambia campaign in 2020, emphasizing wildlife, cultural heritage, and family-friendly activities. Several NGOs work to provide alternative economic opportunities for young men involved in romance tourism. The Bright Future Foundation, established in 2017, offers vocational training in carpentry, mechanics, and small business management. Their success rate is modest, only about 30% of participants completely leave the tourism hustle. But it represents hope for change. European governments have taken varying approaches. Germany's development agency GIZ funds programs promoting sustainable tourism and youth employment. However, there's reluctance to address the issue directly, partly due to the complexity of regulating private relationships between consenting adults. Some European cities with large Gambian immigrant populations have established support groups for women who have been involved in these relationships. Frankfurt, with Germany's largest Gambian community, offers counseling services for women dealing with financial and emotional exploitation. The economic impact of romance tourism is impossible to ignore. Informal surveys suggest that European women's remittances to the Gambia total between 15 to 25 million annually, comparable to the country's entire groundnut export earnings. This money flows directly to local communities, unlike resort tourism, where profits often go to foreign hotel chains. It supports small businesses, pays school fees, funds medical care, and provides capital for entrepreneurial ventures. From a pure economic development perspective, these relationships achieve more direct poverty alleviation than many formal aid programs. However, this creates dangerous dependencies. When European economies struggled during the 2008 financial crisis and again during COVID-19, remittances to the Gambia dropped dramatically. Families accustomed to European support found themselves in desperate situations overnight. The long-term consequences are even more concerning. By creating an economy based on exploiting emotional and sexual relationships with foreigners, the Gambia risks institutionalizing a form of tourism that undermines human dignity and genuine development. Dr. Ibu Haidara, an economist at the University of the Gambia, argues that romance tourism represents a development trap, providing short-term relief that prevents the systemic changes necessary for sustainable economic growth. So what are we to make of this complex phenomenon? The story of romance tourism in the Gambia resists simple moral judgments. It's simultaneously exploitative and economically vital, degrading and empowering, colonial and post-colonial. For the European women involved, these relationships often provide genuine companionship and purpose, even when built on unstable foundations. For young Gambian men, they offer economic opportunities in a country where formal employment is scarce. For Gambian families, European remittances can mean the difference between poverty and basic security. Yet this system perpetuates the very inequalities it temporarily alleviates. It turns human relationships into economic transactions, reinforces stereotypes about African men and European women, and prevents the development of sustainable economic alternatives. The real tragedy is that the Gambia has enormous untapped potential. Its strategic location, stable democracy since 2016, English-speaking population, and rich cultural heritage could support diverse forms of tourism and economic development. But as long as romance tourism provides easy money, there's little incentive to invest in the harder work of building sustainable industries. Perhaps the most uncomfortable truth is that this phenomenon reflects broader global patterns of inequality and exploitation that extend far beyond the Gambia's beaches. In a world where economic desperation drives people to commodify their most intimate relationships, we're all implicated in systems that prioritize profit over human dignity. The question isn't whether these relationships are moral or immoral. It's whether we're willing to address the underlying inequalities that make them seem necessary in the first place. What do you think? Are these relationships examples of individual agency and mutual benefit, or symptoms of deeper structural injustices? And what would genuine solutions look like in a world where poverty and wealth coexist so starkly? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story opened your eyes to a side of global tourism you hadn't considered before, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the hidden stories that shape our world.